Singapore, the city that once made every other city look incompetent, is losing visitors at a record pace. Not to war or to a scandal, but to the realization that Singapore has become the most impressive city in the world to visit exactly once. Singapore was supposed to be the city that solved and offered everything. Now it's the city that's losing everything. For 2 generations, Singapore functioned as the standing rebuttal to every argument that great cities are ungovernable. Clean streets, efficient transit, a skyline that looked like someone had handed the future a building permit and said, "Go ahead, we trust you." The kind of order that other cities reference in planning documents and never quite achieve. Tourists did not just visit Singapore. They came to verify that it was real. Something has changed. Not loudly, not in the way that generates a single defining headline, in the way that cities actually change, which is to say, slowly and then all at once, and in a register that the official tourism numbers are specifically designed not to capture. Singapore spent decades building itself into the most controlled success story in modern urban history. It is now discovering that control, taken far enough, has a cost that does not appear on any balance sheet until the bill arrives. And the bill, it turns out, is already overdue. The numbers that the Singapore Tourism Board releases are impressive in the way that Singapore has always been impressive, precisely formatted, confidently delivered, and selected with great care. Total visitor arrivals recovered strongly after the pandemic. Changi Airport reclaimed its status as the world's best. Marina Bay Sands lit up its infinity pool, and the photographs kept coming. What the headline figures do not show is the composition shift underneath them. The high-spending leisure traveler, the one who stays 5 nights and eats somewhere remarkable and comes back in 3 years, has been quietly redirecting. Not dramatically, not in numbers large enough to cause alarm in a single quarter, but consistently enough that the people working inside Singapore's hospitality and retail sectors have begun to describe a phenomenon that the press releases have not yet acknowledged. A senior general manager at one of the major Marina Bay properties, speaking without attribution to a regional hospitality publication, described it this way. He said the guests still arrive, but the guests who were here 5 years ago are not the same guests who are here now. The ones who came specifically for Singapore, who knew the city, who had a restaurant list and a neighborhood they preferred, and a reason beyond the airport connection. Those guests are coming less often and staying less long. That last part is the part worth holding. Because when the guests who knew a city best stop coming back, something has already been lost that the occupancy rate cannot measure. Singapore built its modern tourism identity on the idea of the stopover elevated to a destination. Changi Airport was the mechanism. A traveler en route from London to Sydney or from Dubai to Tokyo could stop in Singapore and find something that justified the detour. Not just a clean hotel. A city. A genuinely impressive, walkable, functioning city with food and culture and a harbor and the gardens by the bay doing whatever it is the gardens by the bay do, which is essentially serving as the physical proof that Singapore can grow things, even things that look like they belong on another planet, on an island that runs out of land before it runs out of ambition. That model worked brilliantly for a specific kind of traveler, and that specific kind of traveler is now increasingly bypassing the stop. The reasons are not mysterious. Direct long-haul routes have multiplied. The premium placed on avoiding connections has risen, and the competitors that Singapore never quite took seriously as competitors have matured. Kuala Lumpur has a functional, beautiful airport and a city behind it that costs considerably less to inhabit for a week. Bangkok has been offering a version of Southeast Asian intensity at a fraction of the price for decades. Bali is not a city, but it is an experience. And in the attention economy, experience is the unit of measurement that has replaced almost everything else. Singapore's response to this competitive pressure has been, characteristically, to build more. The Jewel at Changi opened, which is a building that contains a waterfall, a garden, and approximately every premium retail brand currently operating on Earth. And it is extraordinary. And it is also not a city. It is a very large, very expensive monument to the idea that you can manufacture wonder if you spend enough money on the infrastructure. The problem is that manufactured wonder and actual wonder are distinguishable. Not by everyone, and not immediately, but by the traveler with options and experience, which is the exact traveler that Singapore's entire value proposition was calibrated to attract. And that traveler has begun to notice the difference. Which brings us to the place where Singapore's story gets genuinely uncomfortable. A food critic who has spent significant time writing about the hawker center culture, the thing Singapore's government most correctly identified as the soul of the city's claim on any visitor's affection, described the shift in terms that were difficult to argue with. The hawker centers, she said, are still there. The food is still extraordinary in many of them. But the ecosystem that produced the food, the hawker families who had operated the same stall for 2 or 3 generations, is aging out faster than it is being replaced. The next generation does not want to work the hours. The stalls change hands. The food that arrives is often good. It is not the same food. And the people who came specifically for the food, not the performance of the food, can tell the difference. This is how a city loses its singularity. Not in one decision, in the accumulation of small, correct-looking decisions that each make individual sense and collectively hollow out the specific thing that made the place irreplaceable. The hawker centers are the most visible example. They are not the only one. Orchard Road was once one of the genuinely great retail streets in the world. Not because of the brands it carried, every city above a certain income level carries the same brands, but because of the density and the energy, and the sense that the street itself was alive. What it is now is a collection of malls. Excellent malls. Malls with more air conditioning per square meter than almost anywhere on Earth. Malls that contain everything a traveler could want, except the feeling that they are anywhere specific. People are not buying a list of available activities when they choose a destination. They are buying the feeling of being somewhere that exists nowhere else. Orchard Road used to produce that feeling. The brands are still there. The feeling is not. Surprises, it turns out, are a significant part of what sophisticated travelers are purchasing. The surprise of the unexpected restaurant. The surprise of the neighborhood that the guidebook missed. Singapore, which has optimized everything for the presence of the visitor, has inadvertently eliminated the category of surprise from the itinerary. Tokyo does this differently. Bangkok does this differently. Even Penang, which occupies a fraction of Singapore's resources and global profile, does this differently. These cities retain corners that the visitor does not control and cannot predict. The ones who experience that unpredictability as authenticity are, increasingly, the ones with the money and the inclination to stay somewhere for more than 48 hours. Singapore knows this. What makes it worth watching is what it did next. The policy response has been to attempt to engineer authenticity. Heritage districts are preserved. The Kampong Glam area and Tiong Bahru have been curated into versions of neighborhood character that can be navigated in an afternoon and photographed efficiently. They are pleasant. They are well maintained. They are the urban equivalent of a museum exhibit about what a neighborhood feels like. A former urban planner who worked on several of Singapore's heritage district projects put it plainly in a conversation documented by a regional architecture journal. He said that they were very good at preserving the form of what made these places interesting. They were less good at preserving the conditions under which interesting things could grow. The rents that followed the preservation made sure of that. This is not a Singapore-specific failure. It is the failure of every city that has tried to package its own vitality and discovered that vitality, like wine and grief and genuine conversation, does not survive the packaging process intact. And it points to the deeper problem, the one that Singapore's management philosophy is least equipped to solve. The reputation cannot come down without damaging the brand. The prices cannot come down without damaging the reputation. The experience cannot rise to meet the prices without a fundamental rethinking of what the city is willing to allow to exist within its borders. And that rethinking runs directly against the management philosophy that made Singapore great. The philosophy that says every problem has an optimal solution, and the optimal solution should be implemented cleanly and completely. Some problems do not have optimal solutions. Some problems are the product of the optimal solutions that came before them. The gardens by the bay will continue to be photographed. Changi will continue to win its awards. The food in the right places will continue to be some of the best on earth. Singapore is not collapsing. It is not Venice, hollowing out from the inside as its residents flee. But here is what is actually happening, and it is the kind of thing that does not appear in a press release or a tourism report or an airport ranking. What is contracting is the gap between Singapore and the reasons to choose Singapore specifically. When that gap closes, the most mobile travelers make a different calculation. They have already made it in larger numbers than the official figures show. The people who run the restaurants and the hotels and the tour operations at the upper end of the market can feel the change in the weight of things. Not a crisis, not a catastrophe, a thinning. And once a place starts to lose the people who knew it best, it begins to lose the memory of what it was. Not immediately, not obviously, but consistently. That is how it always starts. And once you know how to read the pattern, you cannot stop seeing it.